In this video, we'll do a fresh installation of AlarmTraq on a Windows Server 2008 R2 with SQL Server 2008 R2 already pre-installed. AlarmTraq requires SQL Server or SQL Server Express in order to run. So after doing a default installation of SQL Server or SQL Server Express, I'm going to go onto the support site, or if you are using the AlarmTraq evaluation version, you will be provided with an AlarmTraq.zip file. On the support site, we're presented with two options: AlarmTraq Standard Package 7.3 or the AlarmTraq Full Package 7.3. The only difference being, if you look at the size, the full package is 351 megabits. It's all of the components required to install AlarmTraq. I usually go with the standard package, which is only 17.2, and any of the or all of the prerequisite components and packages will be downloaded from the specific vendor during installation. We're going to be downloading the Crystal reports for .NET Framework 4.0 from the Business Objects website, and we'll be getting the Microsoft .NET Framework if it's not already installed. That Framework 3.5 does come on Server 2008, so it's already installed. We won't have to worry about that. We have the Microsoft Interop Forms redistributable and the Microsoft Windows Installer package. So I'm going to go ahead and download the standard package. I'm just going to put it on my desktop. And we'll pause while this package downloads. Okay, we've got the package installed or downloaded to my desktop, so I can go ahead and log off of the support site. Close that up. I downloaded it to here. Typically what I like to do is I will open them up, I'll copy, I'll create a new folder under, say, the C drive. I'll just call it AlarmTraq Install. I'll copy the files there. Keeping these files on the computer may come in handy, especially if you need to reinstall AlarmTraq for some reason. So we can go ahead and close up the zip file. Now, a couple of important things we're going to need to do first off. We're going to go ahead and run the install just by running setup. And as you can see, it's telling me it needs to download the SAP Crystal Reports runtime engine. We'll just click accept, and it'll download the files. This process actually can take several minutes, especially for the Crystal Reports runtime engine. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this until Crystal is already installed. There we go. It's already finished. Okay, so here's my AlarmTraq installation window. I'm going to go ahead and use all the defaults. Let AlarmTraq install. And AlarmTraq has been successfully installed. Click close. As you can see, we have a shortcut to the AlarmTraq right up on the desktop. But one step we're going to want to do before that is, assuming you did a default installation of SQL, a couple things we're going to want to change. So I've already installed SQL Server on this machine, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the SQL Server Management Studio. I'm going to log in with Windows Authentication. And one change we need to make is we're going to go into the SQL Server itself, go to Properties, and under Security, By default, AlarmTraq installed, or SQL Server installed with a Windows authentication mode only. We want to change that to SQL Server and Windows authentication mode, or mixed mode as they call it. Reason being is AlarmTraq will be installed as a service, and the service profile by default will not have any Windows login. So, like it's telling us, some of the configuration changes will not take effect until SQL Server is restarted. So we will restart SQL in a little bit. I'll click OK. But one other option we're going to want to do is under Security and Logins. You have the SA login. Now you can create your own SQL login to use with AlarmTraq, but I'm going to go ahead and use the System Administrators. So I'm going to go to Properties. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a password that I know. In this case, I'm just going to make it AlarmTraq. 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 And I'm going to uncheck the enforce password policy, just so it doesn't force me to make a stronger password. That works for me. Now I'm going to go down here to Status. As we can see, login is disabled because it wasn't used before we switched the system to mixed mode. I'll click that as, I'll click OK. And then one other step we need to take is we're going to install or run a SQL script which will install the database for us. So I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to click on File, Open, File. Now I'm going to get myself to the AlarmTraq folder that was just installed. So I'll go to My Computer, C drive. Because AlarmTraq is a 32-bit application, it was installed under the Program Files x86 folder. AlarmTraq. Under AlarmTraq, I have a Tools folder. As we can see, we have three script files in this folder. The Create AlarmTraq is the one I'm concerned with. Because I'm not using SQL Express here, we're using a full-blown SQL Server. I'm going to select the Create AlarmTraq 7.3 SQL 2008 R2 MS SQL Server script. We're going to open up that script. Now, by default, you'll see here the path settings. This is typical for a fresh default installation. However, this path may be slightly different. So if we bomb out when we go to run this script, that's more than likely the first place you'll need to look. We can actually just confirm that easy enough just by scrolling down and going to looking at My Computer, C drive, Program Files, SQL Server, and there it is. There's the name of my SQL Server right there. And in that case, it does match. So we can go ahead and run this script. I'm going to go ahead and click Execute. And as we can see down here, it's executing the query. Now this could take several minutes, usually about 2 minutes to run, so I'm going to pause until we're completed. Okay, the command successfully completed. As we can see, the query executed successfully. In this case, it took 2 minutes and 2 seconds to create the new AlarmTraq database. Now, in order to see that, I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to right-click here and go to Refresh. And now if I open up Databases, we'll see that the AlarmTraq database has been created. All the tables appear to be there, as well as stored procedures and miscellaneous functions. So I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and close up the SQL Server Management Studio. Now, one step, if you recall earlier, it said that we needed to restart the service for the mixed mode authentication to take effect. So I'm going to go to Programs, SQL Server 2008, Configuration Tools, and SQL Server Configuration Manager. All I really need to do is select my SQL Server service. I'm just going to tell it I'm going to restart. All right, we're complete. So now we can go ahead and attempt to start AlarmTraq. First thing that pops up is it wants to know the SQL connection. By default, it's going to use the local machine. So if you're using SQL Server Express, it should match nicely. But we are going to want to use SQL Server Authentication. If you remember, we used the SA username and password, AlarmTraq. We entered this earlier. Let's give it a test. Okay, test completed successfully. So I'll go ahead and click OK. Now AlarmTraq wants to know if we're upgrading from a previous version of AlarmTraq that uses an access database, such as version 5.3 or below. In this case, fresh installation, we're just going to say no. And I'm going to go ahead and start it up again. It sees the database. And now what it's doing is updating the Nortel maintenance objects and AVAYA maintenance objects in its database. Got quite a few going on here, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this. It'll probably take a couple minutes. It's just about done adding all the maintenance objects. And AlarmTraq came up. And as we can see, the database does contain a single alarm that it created on startup called AlarmTraq Test and added the appropriate site profile into the database. Now, one of the first tasks you're going to want to look at is opening up system-wide options. By default, AlarmTraq is not set up to use modems. However, we do want to keep one port available, even though there is no COM port assigned to it. If you are using a modem, you can start with your port 1 and select whatever COM port is associated with a modem. If there's no modem and you're just going to be using SNMP traps to receive alarms, then just leave port 1 enabled as none. And we also want to take a look at the system-wide options on the email tab and go ahead and modify this in order to make the email work. So right now it gives me, it just makes up the logged in domain name with administrator. So we'll want to change this to something a little more reasonable. I'll make the company name is going to be, well, we'll make it something a little bit different. AVAYA Communications. That would be my company, the business partner name. And my default email, in this case, will be jriley@rileytelly.com. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'll make that the admin and the alert also. And the sender name is going to be the AlarmTraq server, and the tech reply to and cust reply to could be really anything you like, but you'll want to keep it within your domain so it can send the mail correctly. I'm going to leave all the mail settings as default at this point, and it should work. One other option we're going to want to take a look at under system-wide options is I'm going to go ahead and turn on the SNMP manager so we can receive SNMP traps from Communications Manager and Aura systems. So I'm going to use the native Communications Manager, which is built into AlarmTraq, or I could optionally enable the external SNMP Manager, which is a separate executable that AlarmTraq runs as a Windows service. In order to see those changes, I'm going to need to restart. As we can see now, it's loading the SNMP Manager. And I can take a quick look just by clicking View SNMP Trap Viewer. And by default, it's just going to show me all the MIB files that it loaded. I'll scroll down here and take a look. Yes, okay. Compiled all the MIB files in 10 seconds. And ports open and listening for traps. Now let's see if we can connect with a Communications Manager and send a trap. Logged in, I'm going to issue the test INADS command. We'll wait for it to come in. There it is, testing INADS link. I can actually view the whole alarm coming in through there. And we should be getting a call acknowledged back. There it is. Sent to INADS, the reply was call acknowledged, so we know that's good. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. We'll close that up. As we can see, came in as an unknown CM system, showing the IP address of the device. So I can just simply go up, click Site Profiles, select that unknown system, and give it a real name. In this case, I'll call it O'Reilly S8300. 5.2. Apply. I can go ahead and set up the connection info. In this case, I'm just going to be doing a direct IP connection, logging in with dadmin. I'm going to give it my PIN. The IP address is 192.168.1.30. I'll hit apply. If I look at the tests, by default, it's going to use the test INADS link. We can go ahead and just test it again right now. It's going to attempt to log in. It's going to retrieve the software version of the switch, and it's going to issue the now plus 2-minute command to run the test INADS. And there's the alarm just came in, O'Reilly S8300. So that about covers installation of AlarmTraq.